Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of the Mortal Kombat Franchise Documentary. This evening I'm delighted to be joined by the one and only Samantha Win, who played the character Princess Kitana in Mortal Kombat Legacy, a TV web series that was out at the start of the decade. Very successful TV web series worldwide. Samantha played the character Princess Kitana, where she came across most of the episode was dealing with Shao Kahn and Sindel and Melina. So first of all, Samantha, I'm just going to take you back to the early days. Mortal Kombat, the first movie came out in 1995, and dare I say you were probably only barely in your, I say early, were you 10, 9, 8, we're back around that sort of time?
4, so not quite into the gory, bloody movies quite yet, though I did have 2 older brothers, so I saw a lot of inappropriate stuff, but
so,
not yet.
So growing up in terms of playing, sorry, you mentioned 2 older brothers playing computer games, and would you have heard about Mortal Kombat? Would your brothers have been playing Mortal Kombat? It's one of the big fighting games all over the world, I suppose, back in '94, and Sega Mega Drives and all that. So were you familiar with Mortal Kombat growing up as a child?
Oh, yes. I feel like half of my childhood was me sitting in the basement with my 2 brothers, just back and forth playing Mortal Kombat. I actually played as Melina mostly because I loved the sound, but Kitana was the good one of the 2 sisters. So now in my adult life, I like to resonate with that. I like to do my best to be a good person, and so I won't go for the evil sister. But oh yeah, I played Mortal Kombat all summer, every evening. I wasn't very skilled at it. I was more of a button jammer or controller jammer or button masher. I don't remember the gaming term people use, but yeah.
And I suppose, Samantha, just a quick note on that as well. I suppose you mentioned playing Melina. I suppose that was more, most things as childs, we like the gored animated scenes. I suppose that was more due to the fatality, I imagine, because Princess Kitana's sort of fatalities are light enough in nature.
Exactly. They're what a good person would do if they were to submit someone to a gory fatality. But Melina, she has a more violent nature. So I think as a kid, I was more drawn to that. I just wanted dramatic. I wanted to own my brothers in the most violent, dramatic way possible.
I suppose, Samantha, the second movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, came out in 1997. But in terms of that, you obviously were aware, so growing up on the Mortal Kombat franchise, you knew a bit about Princess Kitana, the background of all the stories. How did the opportunity come about for you to get cast in Mortal Kombat Legacy? Because I imagine it's still, anything with Mortal Kombat still has a great appeal to it. It's one of those dynasties that has been very successful in transitioning from computer game onto the big screen. So obviously for an actor or an actress, it's a sort of a big pull in terms of getting involved with Mortal Kombat gigs, because you get recognized all over the world. So in terms of the auditioning process, how hard was it to land the gig of Princess Kitana, and can you talk us through how you got the role?
I feel so fortunate, firstly, that I was in the martial arts community and action community already. So the director, Kevin Tancharoen, did a short film called Mortal Kombat Rebirth.
Oh, yes.
So before he had cast Mortal Kombat Legacy, he had already done Rebirth, and Lateef Crowder and Matt Mullins were the 2 characters fighting in that short film. And so I was friends with them, and I was kind of already in that community. And so when it came to casting for Mortal Kombat Legacy, I suspect that they kind of pointed him in the direction where he could find other martial artists and actors that were more proficient in action. And so the gym that I was training at the time, Kevin came in there just to take a look at everybody and to see who was there and to see different people's skill sets. And so I think it was from that Princess Kitana, and I felt so grateful. I know when he was in the gym that day, I was kicking extra high and training extra hard. So I'm glad to know it paid off a little bit. But yep, from there it was the traditional casting process. I went into the casting director's office and I did my read. and then you sit at your computer refreshing your email and checking your phone every 5 minutes until you do or don't hear something. And I was lucky enough to hear, and it being such a big part of my childhood, it's still one of my most memorable, beloved experiences working.
Yeah, I suppose, Samantha, we all like to live that sort of fantasy sort of world, that sort of superhero, sort of good versus evil. And I suppose in terms of gigs, in terms of being involved in the movie side industry, it's one of those opportunities come once in a sort of a blue moon to play that sort of fantasy character. So when it does come, I suppose you have to grab it by both hands.
That is very true. I grabbed it by both hands and I never let it go because I've been fortunate enough to stay in the genre. So it's funny, having business attire as a costume for me is like a foreign, I don't know. If I don't have armor and swords and some fantastical wardrobe, I just don't feel at home.
And Samantha, I suppose one of the biggest successes of Mortal Kombat Legacy, obviously, for it to be successful and for your episode in particular to be successful, it all depends about your on-screen chemistry with Michelle Lee, who played your nemesis, Melina, your half sort of sister. So in terms of that, you probably struck it off from the beginning. I suppose you probably were both aware of each other's skills. So in terms of going against each other and that sort of terms of kicking ass, as the saying goes, was it very enjoyable shooting those fight scenes with Michelle Lee?
Oh yeah, I couldn't have had a better partner through it all. Michelle and I did know of each other, and I don't remember if we had gotten to really meet before, but we were very aware of each other, and we both have wushu backgrounds, and we were both, you know, Asian female martial artists in the LA stunt community, and so we'd see each other, hear about each other. And when we got to work together, it was, you know, just a sequence of getting coffee for each other, getting cookies for each other, spending time, going to fittings together. And it was like working with a friend, a big group of friends, actually. I did have the fortune of knowing quite a few before shooting. So it was a very comforting and familiar feeling. And it was such a lovely set to be on because there were so many friendships and so much history between everyone already. So yeah, Michelle is just a joy, and that's why she's still kicking butt today. I was gonna say kicking something else, but I don't know what I'm allowed to say.
Samantha, in terms of Mortal Kombat Legacy, can you tell me about the scenes that you shot out in the forest? I remember the particular scene where Michelle has Johnny Cage, Melina has Johnny Cage up by a tree, and you start to intervene there, and that's probably one of your most prolific fight scenes. There's also a fight scene where you're displaying your skills in front of Shao Kahn. So in terms of the shoot locations for that, and in terms of the choreography, in terms of the stunts, how long did it take to shoot all of that, both fight scenes, and where were the locations?
We shot that sequence in, I believe it was Malibu Creek State Park, which is up in Malibu in California, and it's beautiful. There's fog rolling in. The trees have these really creepy, unique shapes to them. So I think quite a few things are shot there, but the sequence took about 2 days, but that included the acting portions and the kind of running through the woods portions. And it's funny because my most vivid memory of most shooting experiences actually is like my comfort level. And I remember being so cold. I remember trying to fight with the fans, but my fingers were so cold. It was hard to grip and to move properly. So it was a day of trying to stay warm and constantly jogging on the spot and constantly moving my fingers so that we were able to do our fight sequence. And when I look at the footage now, it almost looks like I was wearing dark purple lipstick.
Okay.
But I think I was just wearing chapstick. I think I was just cold and my lips were blue. And it looked like some sort of dramatic lipstick on me. So it's funny what things jump out at you in hindsight. But the actual fight experience was so fun. And the fact that Kevin Tancherowan has a dance choreography background, he just understands where to put the camera to highlight body movement. And so everything we shot, when I would see playback, it just looked so cool. I had such confidence in his vision that it was a very easy, comfortable day. I didn't worry at all what it was looking like or what I looked like, because I had such trust and faith in him. And then, of course, you see the final product, and I love that fight. I think it's funny. I think it's cool. I think it's dramatic. I think it's like very special. One of my favorite that I've done, for sure. I walked away with, well, some bruises, but also a lot of good feelings.
Yeah, and I suppose the character Princess Kitana, in terms of, we know she's a badass, but she's sort of the good sort of character, but also in terms of that male demographic that are so in tune with Mortal Kombat, she also brings that sort of sex appeal, dare I say, which sort of sells in terms of computer games as well, in terms of Mortal Kombat. So in terms of the sort of appeal in terms of the costuming and attire for Princess Kitana, how long did it take in terms of makeup, in terms of getting the fangs and that sort of costume material? Was it something that you had to stay in line, or was it something that you could get off fairly quickly in terms of moving from scene to scene?
I felt that it was very functional. I never struggled with the wardrobe. I think that that team did a fantastic job of designing not only a good looking costume, but it was very practical. Nothing was pinching or chafing or moving around. Actually, I think even Kevin's original drawings and concepts of the wardrobe were even more conservative, but the women were like, oh, we could go a little more towards the game, and like we would feel comfortable with that. But he was great at not pushing that video game kind of sex appeal image onto us, which was so great, because as a young woman, you know, you're still developing yourself. It's nice to be seen and respected for the right things. And I do feel like it was a good balance of nodding to the video game style, while also, you know, nothing was going to fall out, nothing was going to be distracting. I think that the moves and the actual fights definitely overshadow, you know, the sex appeal part of it. And, you know, if people choose to look at that more, that's on them. But I was thinking about where I was punching next. So I'll just leave it at that.
And Samantha, in terms of the fangs, in terms of, I imagine, do you get to some things in terms of Mortal Kombat memorabilia, or terms are they're worth their gold in terms of possessions and so obviously fond memories? So were you able to bring home one or two token items for yourself? And there's a possibility maybe in 2019 or previous years that when Halloween came around, we'd see Samantha Win on the local streets walking around as Princess Kitana for trick-or-treating at everyone's doorstep.
You know, I wish, if someone can get a hold of whoever has those costumes now, I would love to have a replica or my original costume from it. But I see videos on YouTube where people have made their own cosplay versions of the wardrobe, and it looks amazing. And I don't have that. I want it. But no, I think the only thing that I kept from the principal shoot was the director chair back. We get on the, you know, the actors and directors have the chairs, and it's like a canvas back on it. So it has the Mortal Kombat logo, and then it has your name on the other side. So a lot of times they let you keep that as memorabilia. But props and wardrobe are, for some productions, a little harder, because in case they need to use it in the future, especially if it's a franchise kind of project, they just might need it. So it's a little more difficult to give those things away. So I don't have any of those items. I would love them someday, but I might just have to buy them off of some auction on eBay like everybody else.
And I suppose, Samantha, in terms, I mentioned this to Eric, and it was something that struck him as well. In terms of the timing when he came out probably a year or two before Netflix. And we know the success Netflix is in terms of an online streaming site. And I suppose the possibility of Mortal Kombat Legacy, it had sort of 2 seasons, but if it came about at the time when Netflix was in existence, I'd say there was a possibility for 4, maybe 5 seasons, given the array of dialogue and backstories of each sort of character. So do you think it was just maybe a timing issue where you just sort of missed the boat on that one?
I guess it depends how you want to look at it. If that would be the glass half empty version is, oh, we missed it. It could have been so much more big. But the glass half full is that because it came right before, only the hardcore diehard fans well, no, because it still had, I think at the time, the most views out of any web series when it came out. So it wasn't even just the fans, but I think it started something, or it was like a unique success in and of itself that got to be where it was purely because of the quality and the hardcore fan base. It didn't have Netflix promoting for them. It became special because it was special. And so I like to think of it like that. It wasn't a Netflix project or that wasn't the reason for its success. So I don't know. I like to look at it as it was more special because of it.
And I suppose, Samantha, you probably took the curve and you were the first ones to go that extra step yourself in Mortal Kombat Conquest. In terms you went towards a more R-rated, more sort of mature sort of audience, and where the Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat Annihilation were, dare I say, they were just above the sort of PG sort of rating. But obviously that sort of demographic, you've set a tone now for the appetite in terms of this new movie that's going to be out in Mortal Kombat 2021, and that's obviously people are saying this is going to be more along the lines of the Dark Knight in terms of that sort of maturity, in terms of that sort of storyline. So have we seen that gradual growth of Mortal Kombat starting off from PG to where it is now today and deemed acceptable in terms of TV sort of viewing?
Yeah, there's definitely been a progression, and I'm so happy because I feel like now it's more true to the actual video game. I mean, even back in the 90s, Mortal Kombat, what was the first one? I think the first one didn't have blood, was it? But they were very gory from very early. Even when it was just, a lot of pixels, there would still be a spurt of all these red pixels representing blood. It was a very gory game, and I think that's what made it special at the time and why people loved it so much. So I'm really happy that the film adaptations and now on-screen representations are starting to honor that. People, I think, aren't as afraid of the gore and violence as much as they used to be. It's film, it's movies, it's fantasy, it can honor the spirit of that game, which is just utter gore, blood, body limbs, decapitations, imploding hearts. I don't know, so much. The sky's the limit with that game.
And I suppose, Samantha, in terms of the new movie coming out in January 2021, I know most of the main characters have been cast now already for the movie, but just if the producers were looking on and they were looking for a cameo role, say for a Jade or something like that, would that be something you'd be giving the thumbs up for if the film producers were looking for someone in terms of, obviously you'd fit that sort of demographic as well in terms of Jade and all that. Would that be something that sort of whet your appetite?
Oh, of course. I mean, Mortal Kombat holds such a special place in my heart. Any opportunity, whether it was a voice on the video game or a cameo in the film or another season of the web series, anything Mortal Kombat I would always want to be a part of because I'm a fan of it myself, and why wouldn't you? It's just fun. If I get to do that and be a part of its history, it's special.
And I suppose, Samantha, lastly for me, the last sort of question now, probably one of the toughest one I'm going to ask you. If someone put the character Princess Kitana in the dictionary and they left 2 blank sentences underneath and asked you, Samantha Win, what would you like those to read, given your portrayal as Princess Kitana? What would you like those 2 blank sentences to read, given it's in the dictionary now?
Wow, this is where quick wit and clever wording would help. I would say Princess Kitana is both equal parts elegance, beauty, regality, and violent. But it represents both sides of her. And yeah, I'm going to go with that. That's what I love about her, so that's what I would want to put in the dictionary about her.
Samantha, an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening, reliving your memories of playing Princess Kitana in Mortal Kombat Legacy. Obviously, that's one of the best episodes. Yourself and Michelle Lee played Medlina, up there with what Scorpion and the Sub-Zero episode in terms of its quality, in my opinion. A very pleasure talking to you this evening, representing Princess Kitana in our Mortal Kombat franchise documentary. No doubt about it, you seem to be a big fan, sort of, and you'll be there. If COVID is not here, you'll be there in the cinema watching in firsthand, but otherwise you'll be with the popcorn and I suppose the sandals and sprawled across your couch and watching Mortal Kombat 2021 in January this coming year.
Yeah, I guess it depends if theaters are open here or not yet with coronavirus.
On that note, Samantha, a pleasure, and no doubt we'll see you in many more Mortal Kombat projects to come in the next decade.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Fight.